And now I'd like to introduce our program. Our moderator tonight is John Shoaff. He's an architect. He's a councilman at large. He's going to be the author of a book about Frank Lloyd Wright's design process. In fact, he is the author of a book about Frank Lloyd Wright's design process, but it hasn't been published as a book. And he's the former president of Headwaters Park Commission. Ian Rolland is the former CEO of Lincoln National Corporation. And I Googled all our speakers tonight, and this is what I found about Ian Rolland. He was born on June 3rd, which makes him a Gemini. It also makes tomorrow his birthday. And he is a famous businessman from the United States. That's what the website said. So his contributions to the community and to the state of Indiana and to the United States have a breadth and depth that I can't conceive of being duplicated, and so we're very pleased to have him here. Winfield Moses is a former mayor of Fort Wayne from 1980 to 1987. He served in the State House of Representatives since 1992, and he's the founding chair of Citizens Action Coalition. He's received multiple recognitions and awards, such as the Leadership Award for the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, and his resume is extraordinarily impressive as well. Dan Seitz, managing principal with Rose Public Affairs Group. He was the vice president of governmental relations for Lincoln National Corporation when Headwaters Park was being. Among his many other accomplishments, Dan is a co-founder and former president of the Governmental Affairs Society of Indiana. He's the former chairman and board member of Indiana Fiscal Policy Institute and has served in multiple roles on the state level. He has presented numerous seminars and published articles about health policy and insurance matters, as well as the Indiana legislative process. Dan has worked in Indiana legislature since 1970 and with a focus on insurance and health policy. However, as we shall see, he has broad experience in representing diverse policy interests. So I'm going to turn it over to these gentlemen, and I think
I'd like the panel to come up with me. I'm missing my notes, so I'm going to have to wing something here. I hope I don't forget any names.
I walked off.
Yes, thank you. She didn't really want me to say it. You may wonder why Julie asked me to do this, and again, you may not. But Tom Smith asked the question at council the other night, and I said, well, she knew she had three really entertaining and dynamic speakers, and she needed a little contrast. So, and thank you, Julie, for introducing them so well. I won't need to give their biographies again, but they will speak in the order of Win first, then Ian, and then Dan, because this story has a narrative that unfolds. I think that's a natural sequence for the telling of the story. Before we start, I do want to recognize a few other people who have been part of this large effort over the years, and I want to start with the legislators who helped us. Phyllis Pond, who is here, was in the legislature long enough. She was there during two significant periods when we needed their help. The first was when we needed some enabling legislation that got the commission formed. The second was when we needed money. And she told me earlier this evening when she had some discretionary funds, or the state had some discretionary funds, she gave a good portion of them to us. Benji Aquenta who is here, came into the legislature later, but he really put himself behind getting funding for this. I'll tell you a little story about Ben and me. Ben, when he was about to re-up, to run for re-election, he called me and said, John, would you meet me down at the Headwaters site? We did not have a park. It was just a site, and we went down there together, and stood on this cracked concrete, surrounded by these boarded up and decrepit buildings, and it was about as glamorous as being in front of an oil slick. And Ben announced his re-election campaign at that time, and of course he won handily, and then he was extremely helpful with us. And Mitch Harper was in the legislature, not at the time we were asking for funds, but he was in there during the initial period when we needed help, and in fact I will invite Mitch and Phyllis to respond at the end of our presentation if they'd like to tell part of the story that we're going to hear tonight. The story we're going to hear tonight is the beginnings of the vision and the efforts that were needed to get the commission underway. The commission was simply put in the position of doing the job. We were sort of the mule team, you might say, that took over and just worked for 10 years to get it done after the vision had been developed by the gentleman we're going to hear from. But I'd like to recognize the former Headwaters Park commissioners. This is not the current alliance which runs the park, but the commission that existed for the limited purpose of getting the thing built. And we have this bit of a reunion for some of us tonight. The first alphabetically is Marty Bender, now President of City Council, Tim Borney, Mel Griswold, who was a charter member, one of the original ones, stayed with us for 10 years, John Gurney, Molly McRae, who got here finally, thank you Molly. And I put down Eleanor Marine's name because she wanted to be here. She was our treasurer for 10 years, couldn't make it. She's very busy today with Philharmonic business that was taking up her day. Jim Owen, Charles Redd. Charles and Molly were the only two chairmen of the planning committee that we ever had, and Charles in the early days negotiated this through some very tricky waters that required finesse diplomacy, which he was able to provide, and then Molly cracked the whip for several years after that. But Molly was very good. She had the trade rule. No meeting lasted more than an hour. We got a lot done that way. John Stafford, and Judy Zahner. And I don't think I have missed anybody, have I? Good. All through that period, we worked with our architects and Alan Grinsfelder and Ed Welling are here tonight. Of course, Eric Kuhn was our visionary and now practices out of London and couldn't be here. But those two really did a terrific job, and they have followed through. The space we are in now is of their own design, obviously following very sympathetically the original design of this pavilion.